Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched the stars dance past the main window. His ship was 3 days out from the Kepler system, where they had just finished a trade meeting with the local alien colonies. The mission had gone well, and Jake felt good about heading home to Earth. He had been away for 2 months and missed the blue skies of his home planet. Lisa Park sat at her navigation station, checking their course back to Sol System. She was the best navigator Jake had ever worked with and could plot a jump through hyperspace better than most computers. Danny Cole worked down in the engine room, keeping their fusion drive running smooth. He was young but smart and could fix anything that broke on their ship. Amy Wright handled all their communications from her station near the back of the bridge. She had been trying to reach Earth for the past hour to let them know they were coming home. "Captain Morrison, sir," Amy called out from her station. "I'm getting something strange from Earth Control." Jake walked over to Amy's station and looked at her screens. "What kind of strange?" "Well, sir, I was talking to Earth Control about our return schedule when the signal just cut out. Now I can't get any response at all from Sol System." Jake frowned. "Maybe it's just a bad connection. Space communications can be tricky sometimes." Amy shook her head. "No, sir, this is different. I'm not getting any signals at all from that direction. No civilian traffic, no military channels, no emergency beacons. Nothing." Lisa looked up from her navigation station. "Captain, that doesn't make sense. Sol System has millions of ships and stations. There should always be some kind of signal traffic." Danny's voice came over the ship's speaker system from the engine room. "Hey, Captain, I'm picking up some weird readings on our long-range sensors. Something big is blocking our view of Sol System." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "Lisa, plot a course for home, maximum speed." "Yes, sir." The horizon's edge jumped into hyperspace and raced toward Earth. Jake paced the bridge while his crew worked at their stations. Something was very wrong, but he could not figure out what it might be. Earth was the most protected system in human space, with hundreds of defense stations and thousands of ships. Nothing could threaten Earth without the entire galaxy knowing about it. When they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol System, Jake understood why Danny had detected something big. A massive energy barrier surrounded the entire solar system like a giant soap bubble. The barrier glowed with a soft blue light and seemed to stretch in all directions. Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and all the other planets were trapped inside this strange energy field. "Amy, try to contact anyone inside the barrier," Jake ordered. Amy worked at her station for several minutes. "I can't get through, sir. The barrier is blocking all communications." Lisa ran scans on the energy field. "Captain, this barrier is like nothing I've ever seen. It's not human technology, and it's not from any of the Federation species we know about." Jake stared at the barrier that held his home planet prisoner. "Danny, bring us closer, but keep a safe distance." As they moved nearer to the barrier, other ships appeared on their sensors. Jake counted 12 human vessels of different sizes, all sitting outside the energy field. Some were military ships, and others were civilian cargo haulers. All of them were trapped outside, just like the horizon's edge. "Captain Morrison, this is Commander Steve Wright of the cargo ship Heavy Lifter," came a voice over their radio. You seeing what we're seeing?" "Yes, Commander Wright." "How long have you been here?" 3 days, sir. We were coming back from a supply run to the outer colonies when we found this thing. We've tried everything, but we can't get through, and we can't contact anyone inside." Jake opened a channel to all the ships. "This is Captain Morrison. All ship commanders meet me on the Heavy Lifter in 1 hour. We need to figure out what happened." Here, the meeting brought together captains and crews from all the trapped ships. Steve Wright was an older man who had been hauling cargo between the stars for 20 years. Captain Mary Foster commanded a small patrol ship called the Night Watch. Dr. Kevin Brown was a scientist returning from a research mission on Europa Station. They all had the same story. They had been away from Earth when the barrier appeared, and now they could not get home. "The barrier showed up exactly 72 hours ago," Dr. Brown explained. "My instruments show it's some kind of energy field, but I can't identify the power source." Captain Foster looked worried. My ship carries military communications equipment. I've been trying to reach Federation headquarters, but they're not responding to my calls. Jake felt his anger growing. What do you mean they're not responding? I mean they're ignoring us, Captain Morrison. I've sent priority messages explaining the situation, but Federation Command acts like nothing is wrong. Steve Wright slammed his fist on the table. 8 billion people are trapped in there and the Federation doesn't care? Dr. Brown pulled up a star chart on his datapad. There's something else. I've been monitoring Federation communications and there are reports of human ships and colonies being isolated all across the galaxy. It's not just Earth. Jake stared at the star chart. Red dots marked locations where human settlements had been cut off from Federation support or surrounded by alien military forces. There were dozens of red dots scattered across known space. They're doing this to all of us, Jake said quietly. Mary Foster nodded. The question is why? 6 months had passed since the barrier appeared around Earth, and things had gotten much worse for humans across the galaxy. Pete Collins stood in his wheat field on the colony world of New Montana and watched Federation transport ships flying away from his planet. The alien crews were abandoning the human settlements and taking all the medical supplies and farming equipment with them. There goes the last of them, said his neighbor Helen Ross as she walked up to Pete's fence line. Helen was a doctor who had been treating colonists for 15 years, but now her medical station was being shut down. They say it's for our own protection, but they're leaving us to die out here. Pete wiped sweat from his face and looked at the ships disappearing into the sky. Protection from what? We've been living here peacefully for 20 years. The Federation Council issued new orders yesterday, Helen explained. All humans are now classified as a quarantined species. They say we carry some kind of biological contamination that makes us dangerous to other species. Pete laughed, but there was no humor in it. Biological contamination, right? We've been working alongside aliens for 50 years and now suddenly we're contaminated. Helen showed Pete a datapad with the official Federation announcement. According to this, humans also suffer from psychological instabilities that make us unpredictable and potentially violent. They're calling it genetic madness. Genetic madness? Pete repeated. That's a new one. On the other side of the galaxy, Lieutenant Commander Chris Hayes stood at attention in the briefing room of the Federation battleship Eternal Vigilance. Admiral Korath, a tall reptilian Vorthan, paced in front of the assembled officers. Chris was one of only 3 humans left on the ship's crew of 800. Effective immediately, all human personnel will be transferred to secure quarters. For their own safety, Admiral Korath announced. Recent studies have shown that humans become increasingly unstable when separated from their home planet. Chris kept his face neutral, but inside he was furious. He had served on Federation ships for 12 years and had never shown any signs of instability. Neither had any of the other human officers he knew. Sir, what about our duty assignments? Asked Lieutenant Nancy Price, another human officer, Admiral Korath's cold eyes fixed on her. Humans are no longer permitted to serve in critical positions aboard Federation vessels. You will be confined to quarters until transport can be arranged to take you to a human settlement. After the briefing, Chris walked through the ship's corridors toward his quarters. He passed his friend Zixka, an insectoid engineer who had worked with him for 3 years. Zixka's compound eyes showed worry as they briefly made contact. This is wrong, Zixka whispered as they passed each other. You are not mad and you are not dangerous. Chris nodded slightly. Remember what we talked about. Zixka had agreed to help Chris document what was happening to humans throughout Federation space. The insectoid engineer had access to ship communications and could monitor Federation military traffic without being detected. In his quarters, Chris activated his personal computer and began writing a report about the systematic removal of humans from Federation positions. He had been collecting information for 3 months and the pattern was clear. Humans were being pushed out of important jobs in government, military, and science positions across the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the research station orbiting Kepler 442b, Dr. Kate Bell made a discovery that would change everything. She was studying tissue samples from humans who had been exposed to extreme stress when she noticed something strange in their DNA. Computer, run a detailed analysis on sequence marker 77 alpha, she said to her laboratory computer. Analysis complete, Dr. Bell. The sequence shows activation of previously dormant genetic material, origin unknown. Kate stared at the results on her screen. The DNA samples from stressed humans contained active gene sequences that were not present in baseline human genetics. These sequences appeared to enhance physical strength, mental processing speed, and sensory awareness. Computer, compare these sequences to the Galactic Genetic Database. Comparison complete. Sequences show 97% match with builder genetic markers. Kate felt her heart racing. The builders were the mysterious ancient species that had once ruled the galaxy before disappearing without explanation thousands of years ago. Every spacefaring civilization knew legends about the builders, but no one had ever found direct evidence of their genetics. Computer, when do these sequences activate? Analysis indicates activation occurs during periods of extreme emotional stress, specifically patterns associated with righteous anger and protective instincts. Kate began to understand. Humans carried builder DNA that awakened when they were pushed beyond their limits by injustice or threats to their families. The Federation wasn't just persecuting humans for political reasons. They were afraid of what humans might become. Across the galaxy, communications specialist Tony Green sat in his hidden base on Asteroid Mining Station, Bravo 7, and coordinated secret messages between scattered human groups. Tony had been a Federation communications officer until he was discharged for being human. Now he used his skills to build an underground network that connected isolated human settlements. "This is Tony Green calling all human stations," he broadcast on an encrypted frequency. "We have confirmed reports of human DNA activation events on 12 different worlds. Repeat, humans are manifesting enhanced abilities when subjected to extreme stress." The responses came in from across known space. Humans trapped on mining worlds reported increased strength and endurance that allowed them to work in conditions that should have killed them. Human scientists cut off from research facilities were making breakthrough discoveries by intuition alone. Human traders banned from Federation markets were finding new routes through space that seemed impossible to navigate. "Tony, this is Rick Turner on the mining world Kepler 442b, came a transmission from a distant system. "We've got 300 miners here, and the Federation cut off our supply lines 2 weeks ago. We were supposed to starve or surrender, but something happened instead." "What kind of something, Rick?" "We got angry, Tony, really angry, and when we got angry enough, we started changing. My miners are moving equipment that weighs 10 tons without machines. They're seeing in the dark and hearing conversations from miles away. We're not just surviving out here, we're thriving." Tony recorded every report and transmitted them to other human groups. The pattern was always the same. When humans were pushed to their breaking point by Federation persecution, they began manifesting abilities that no baseline human should possess, back on the eternal vigilance. Zixka discovered something that made all the pieces fit together. While monitoring Federation command frequencies, the insectoid engineer intercepted a classified transmission between Admiral Korath and the Federation High Council. "Project Silence is proceeding as planned," Admiral Korath reported. "Human populations are being successfully isolated and contained before builder heritage can fully manifest." "Excellent," replied a voice from the High Council. "Our ancestors' records were clear about the danger. The builders were benevolent rulers, but their power was absolute. If their genetic heirs achieve full awakening, they will reclaim dominion over the galaxy. What about the humans who are already showing enhanced abilities? Terminate them before the contagion spreads. We will not bow to builder descendants as our ancestors did." Zixka quickly copied the transmission and sent it to Chris Hayes. When Chris heard the recording, he finally understood what was happening. The Federation wasn't just persecuting humans. They were trying to commit genocide against an entire species to prevent them from reclaiming their birthright as the Builder's heirs. Chris began planning his escape from the eternal vigilance. and his journey to warn other humans about what was coming. Rick Turner wiped black dust from his hands and looked across the mining operation that had become a fortress. 300 human miners worked the deep shafts of Kepler 442b under the light of twin suns. But they were no longer just digging for ore. They were building weapons from industrial equipment and turning their mining complex into something the Federation had never seen before. "Boss, the new shaft is ready," called out miner Billy Carter as he climbed up from the tunnels. Billy was covered in rock dust, but his eyes were bright with an energy that hadn't been there before the changes began. "We hit another vein of rare metals down there." Rick nodded and walked to the edge of the mine where he could see the entire operation. 2 weeks ago, when the Federation transport ships stopped coming, these miners should have starved to death on this barren world. Instead, they had done something impossible. They had turned a failing mining operation into a thriving industrial complex that produced more resources than ever before. "How deep did you go, Billy?" 1,500 meters. "Boss, should have been impossible without proper breathing equipment, but somehow we're all handling the thin air just fine." Rick knew why. The miners had started changing after the Federation abandoned them. At first it was small things like working longer hours without getting tired. Then they began lifting equipment that normally required machines to move. Now they were surviving in conditions that should have killed baseline humans. "The Federation patrol ship is back," reported Jenny Walsh from the communications tower. "Same one that's been watching us for the past week." Rick looked up at the sky where a sleek Federation vessel circled their mining complex like a vulture. The ship's crew was probably sending reports back to their commanders about the impossible things happening on Kepler 442b. Let them watch, Rick thought. Soon the whole galaxy would know what humans could accomplish when they stopped playing by alien rules. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Kate Bell worked in her laboratory on Research Station Eco 7 and studied the genetic changes that was spreading through the human population. What she had discovered in the past month had revolutionized her understanding of human biology and galactic history. "Computer, display builder genetic marker analysis results," she said to her laboratory systems. The screen showed a complex DNA sequence that appeared in humans who had experienced extreme stress. Kate had confirmed that these sequences were identical to genetic samples found in ancient builder ruins across the galaxy. Humans weren't just random descendants of the builders, they were the builders' carefully designed successors. "Computer, what triggers builder gene activation?" Analysis indicates primary trigger is sustained emotional state classified as righteous anger. Secondary triggers include protective instincts toward family groups and moral outrage at perceived injustice. Kate smiled despite the seriousness of her situation. The builders had programmed their genetic legacy to activate only when their descendants faced genuine oppression or threats to innocent people. It was a safeguard against the misuse of power. The enhanced abilities only awakened in humans who were fighting for something greater than themselves. Her research showed that activated humans developed capabilities far beyond normal biological limits. Enhanced strength that allowed them to lift objects weighing several tons. Sensory awareness that let them detect approaching threats from miles away. Mental processing speed that enabled them to solve complex problems by intuition. Most importantly, they gained an ability to coordinate their actions with other enhanced humans as if they shared a collective consciousness. "Dr. Bell, this is Tony Green calling from Asteroid Base Bravo 7, came a transmission on the emergency frequency. "We need your genetic research data. Human communities across the galaxy are reporting coordinated Federation attacks." Kate quickly copied her research files to an encrypted data packet. "Tony, the genetic activation is spreading faster than I expected. Every human who achieves emotional trigger states seems to catalyze activation in nearby humans." "How many activated humans are there now, Kate?" "Conservative estimate is over 50,000 across known space. The number is growing exponentially." Meanwhile, on the ice world of Titan Base, Foreman Gary Price led 200 human workers in converting their terraforming equipment into defensive weapons. The Federation had declared their operation illegal and ordered them to surrender, but Gary's people had other ideas. "The Federation says we're trespassing on this world," Gary announced to his workers. "They want us to pack up and leave the homes we've been building for 5 years. Mechanic Susan Lee raised her hand. "Where exactly are we supposed to go, Gary?" "They've banned humans from most Federation worlds." "That's the point, Susan. They don't want us to go anywhere." "They want us to disappear?" Gary activated the holographic display that showed their converted equipment. Terraforming machines had been modified into mobile defense platforms. Atmospheric processors had been turned into communication jammers that could block Federation sensors. Construction robots had been reprogrammed into automated sentries that could guard their perimeter. "We're not leaving," Gary continued. "This is our home and we're going to defend it." The workers cheered and Gary felt the familiar surge of energy. That came with the genetic activation? His people weren't just angry about Federation persecution. They were experiencing the righteous fury that awakened their builder heritage. When Federation forces arrived to evict them, they would find humans who were no longer bound by the limitations of baseline biology. Across the galaxy, communications specialist Tony Green coordinated the growing resistance from his hidden base. Reports flooded in from human settlements that were not only surviving Federation persecution but actively fighting back against impossible odds. "This is Captain Doug Phillips calling from the cargo hauler Strong Current," came a transmission. "From the Outer Rim territories. We just fought off 3 Federation patrol ships with nothing but mining lasers and attitude. Repeat, civilian cargo ship defeated military patrol squadron." Tony recorded the transmission and added it to his growing database of human victories. "Doug, how many crew do you have aboard Strong Current?" 12 humans, Tony, but we're fighting." "Like we've got 100. My navigator Sally Johnson is plotting jump calculations faster than our computer. My engineer Bob Turner is keeping our engines running at power levels that should have blown us apart." "Any non-human crew, Doug?" "Yeah, we've got 4 alien crew members." "They're scared, Tony, not of us, but of what they're seeing?" "They keep saying humans aren't supposed to be able to do these things." Tony transmitted Doug's report to other human groups and watched as similar stories came in from across known space. Humans were discovering that their enhanced abilities worked better when they fought alongside other enhanced humans. Individual humans showed remarkable improvements, but groups of activated humans could accomplish things that seemed to violate physical laws on the farming world of Green Valley. Restaurant owner turned resistance leader Bobby Kim organized the defense of human settlements against Federation ground forces. Bobby had never been a soldier, but his tactical instincts had sharpened dramatically since his genetic activation began. "The Federation troops will come through Harper's Canyon at dawn," Bobby explained to his volunteer fighters. "We'll be waiting for them." Former corporate executive Grace Murphy nodded from her position near the supply depot. "Bobby, my people have weapons and ammunition ready for transport to 3 other settlements. We're coordinating this defense across the entire planet." Grace had spent her career managing business logistics, but now she was running supply lines for human resistance cells. Her enhanced mental processing allowed her to track hundreds of variables simultaneously and keep fighters equipped across multiple battle zones. "How many enhanced humans do we have, Grace?" "Confirmed activated individuals number over 800 on this world alone. The Federation estimates we have maybe 50 fighters total." Bobby smiled grimly. "Let them underestimate." "Yes. When they hit our positions tomorrow, they're going to learn what happens when you threaten human families." The Federation forces that attacked Green Valley the next morning expected to face frightened civilians armed with farming tools. Instead, they encountered coordinated human fighters who moved with supernatural precision and fought with the fury of an awakened species. The battle lasted less than an hour before the Federation retreated, leaving behind equipment and weapons that the humans quickly added to their growing arsenal. Dr. Kate Bell monitored the battle reports from her research station and updated her genetic analysis. "Computer, calculate current rate of builder gene activation across human populations." Current rate indicates exponential growth. Projected total activation of available human population within 18 months. Kate realized that the Federation had made a critical mistake. By persecuting humans across the galaxy simultaneously, they had triggered the very genetic awakening they were trying to prevent. Every act of oppression created more enhanced humans, and every enhanced human helped activate others. The scattered seeds that the builders had planted in human DNA were finally beginning to bloom. Dr. Nina Walsh brushed dust from the ancient stone doorway and felt her heart racing with excitement. The archaeological site on the dead world of Kepler 186f had been abandoned for months after the Federation cut funding for human research projects, but Nina had returned alone to continue her work. What she had discovered in the ruins would change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. "Computer, activate recording systems," she said to her portable equipment. Personal log, Dr. Nina Walsh, day 47 of Independent Research. The stone archway responded to her presence with a soft blue glow that spread across carved symbols covering the entire structure. Nina had seen similar symbols in builder ruins across the galaxy, but these were different. These symbols moved and shifted as she watched, forming new patterns that seemed designed specifically for human eyes. Nina stepped through the archway and entered a vast chamber filled with holographic displays that activated as she approached. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy that made her enhanced senses tingle. Since her genetic activation began 3 weeks ago, Nina could perceive things that normal human vision couldn't detect. "Greetings, Inheritor," spoke a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You carry the genetic markers we placed within your species. You are ready to receive the knowledge we preserved for you." A holographic figure appeared in the center of the chamber. It was humanoid, but clearly not human, with elongated limbs and features that suggested intelligence beyond anything Nina had encountered. This was a builder speaking to her across thousands of years. "I am Keeper of Records, last of my kind to oversee the legacy protocols," the hologram continued. "Your species has reached the activation threshold. The time has come for you to understand your true heritage." Nina found her voice despite her amazement. "The Federation says your people disappeared mysteriously. What really happened to the builders? We did not disappear, Inheritor. We transcended physical existence by choice, leaving behind our genetic legacy as guardians for future generations. Your species was selected and modified to carry our inheritance." The chamber filled with holographic displays showing the ancient history of the galaxy. Nina watched as the builders ruled over countless worlds, not as conquerors but as protectors who maintained peace between different species. Their technology was so advanced that they could reshape matter at the atomic level and travel between distant galaxies in moments. "Why did you leave?" Nina asked. "Because absolute power corrupts absolutely, even among the wise. We grew too distant from the struggles of mortal life and risked becoming tyrants despite our good intentions. Rather than rule forever, we chose to seed our abilities into a younger species that would face the same challenges we once overcame. But the current Federation species were enslaved before our time. They fear us because they think we'll enslave them in return." The Keeper nodded sadly. "Fear drives them to repeat the cycles of oppression they once suffered. They do not understand that we chose your species specifically because humans possess something we had lost. You have the capacity for moral growth through suffering." Nina watched as the displays showed human history from the builder's perspective. Every war, every struggle for freedom, every act of sacrifice for others had been monitored and recorded. The builders had been studying humanity for thousands of years, waiting for the right moment to activate their genetic legacy. The genetic activation only occurs when humans experience righteous anger in defense of others, the Keeper explained. This ensures that builder abilities awaken only in those who will use them responsibly. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his modified cargo ship and coordinated attacks against Federation facilities. His crew had grown from 4 people to over 200 enhanced humans who had joined their cause. The Horizon's Edge had been transformed from an exploration vessel into the flagship of the human resistance. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Dr. Nina Walsh," reported Amy Wright from her communications station. "She says she's found something important in the Builder ruins." Jake activated the main screen as Nina's excited face appeared. "Jake, you need to see this. I've made contact with an actual Builder intelligence." "That's impossible, Nina. The Builders disappeared thousands of years ago." "No, Jake. They transcended physical existence, but they left behind guardians. In their ancient sites, I'm transmitting everything I've learned about our genetic heritage." The data files that Nina transmitted contained information that revolutionized human understanding of their abilities. The Builders hadn't just enhanced human DNA randomly. They had created a carefully designed system that would produce perfect guardians for galactic civilization. Navigator Lisa Park studied the new data at her station. "Captain, according to this information, our enhanced abilities have barely begun to manifest. We're only using a tiny fraction of our potential." "Engineer," Danny Cole looked up from his modified systems. "The technical specifications here show that fully activated humans can interface directly with Builder technology. We could operate their ancient machines." Jake realized the implications immediately. Scattered across the galaxy were thousands of abandoned Builder facilities containing technology far beyond anything the current civilizations possessed. If humans could access those sites, they would have the tools needed to defend themselves against any threat. "Amy, send a message to all human resistance cells. Tell them to locate and secure any Builder ruins in their sectors." Within hours, reports came in from human groups across the galaxy. Enhanced humans were discovering that they could activate Builder machines simply by touching them. Ancient weapon systems came online after millennia of dormancy. Defensive shields that could protect entire planets flickered back to life. Transportation networks that allowed instantaneous travel between star systems began operating again. On the mining world Kepler-442b, Rick Turner's enhanced miners found Builder manufacturing systems buried deep beneath their operations. The ancient machines could produce any tool or weapon they needed from raw materials. Within days, Rick's 300 miners were equipped with personal armor and weapons that made Federation military equipment look primitive. "This changes everything," Rick transmitted to Tony Green's coordination network. "We're not just surviving anymore, we're becoming something the galaxy has never seen before." But the Federation was also learning about human capabilities. Supreme Admiral Korith stood in the command center of the massive dreadnought. Final authority and studied intelligence reports about human activities across Federation space. "Sir, human resistance cells have gained access to Builder technology," reported his intelligence officer. "They're activating ancient systems that have been dormant for thousands of years." Admiral Korith's reptilian features showed no emotion, but his cold eyes burned with hatred. "Deploy all available forces to prevent further Builder site activations. If necessary, destroy the sites completely." "Sir, some of those sites are on inhabited worlds with mixed populations. Acceptable losses." "The threat of awakened Builder descendants cannot be allowed to spread." Dr. Nina Walsh received the urgent warning from Tony Green's network just as Federation bombardment ships appeared in orbit around Kepler-186f. The aliens were preparing to destroy the Builder site rather than allow humans to learn more about their heritage. "Keeper, the Federation is about to attack this facility," Nina said to the Builder hologram. "Then it is time for the final lesson, Inheritor. Your species must learn to work together as we once did. Individual Builder descendants are powerful, but united Builder descendants are unstoppable." The Keeper transmitted the final genetic activation sequence directly into Nina's enhanced nervous system. She felt her consciousness expand beyond her physical body and connect with every other enhanced human in the galaxy. Suddenly, she could sense Jake Morrison planning his attack on Federation forces 3 sectors away. She could feel Rick Turner's miners preparing their defenses on Kepler-442b. She could perceive the thoughts and emotions of thousands of humans who were experiencing the same connection. "We are no longer scattered," Nina whispered as the Federation ships began their bombardment. "We are one." Across the galaxy, enhanced humans felt the psychic network activate and realized that their individual abilities were just the beginning. Together, they possessed the collective power of the ancient builders, tempered by human wisdom and guided by the hard-earned knowledge that true strength came from protecting others rather than dominating them. The final phase of humanity's awakening had begun. The energy barrier around Earth began to flicker and pulse with unstable light as 8 billion humans experienced something that had never happened before in galactic history. Teacher Larry Johnson stood in his classroom in New York City and felt his consciousness expand beyond his physical body to connect with every other human on the planet. The genetic activation that had been spreading among humans in space was now triggering simultaneously across Earth's entire population. "Students, something extraordinary is happening," Larry said to his confused class as windows rattled from psychic energy discharges. "We are remembering who we were always meant to be." The children looked scared, but Larry could sense their fear, transforming into something else as their own genetic sequences began to activate. Even the youngest humans carried the Builder heritage, and the collective awakening of Earth's population was creating a feedback effect that reached across interstellar space on the Federation battleship Eternal Vigilance. Former Lieutenant Commander Chris Hayes felt the psychic wave wash over him in his detention cell. The enhanced abilities he had been developing over the past months suddenly amplified beyond anything he had experienced. He could sense the thoughts and emotions of humans scattered across the galaxy, all connected through the ancient network. The Builders had embedded in their genetic code. "Zixka, can you hear me?" Chris whispered to his insectoid friend through their secret communication channel. "Yes, Chris, but something is different about your voice. You sound like you are speaking from very far away." "I'm connected to all of them now, every human in the galaxy. We're not individuals anymore, we're something bigger." Chris could feel Admiral Korath's growing panic as the ship's sensors detected massive energy readings from Earth. The Federation had built the barrier to contain humanity, but they hadn't anticipated that trapping 8 billion humans together would create a psychic resonance that could be felt across the entire galaxy. On the surface of Earth, engineer Megan Davis worked frantically in the underground facilities beneath Denver, where builder technology had been hidden for millennia. The ancient machines were responding to the mass awakening by coming online for the first time since the Builders had transcended physical existence thousands of years ago. The barrier generators are linked to a network of suppression satellites. In high orbit, Megan transmitted to resistance cells across the planet. But the Builder systems down here can overload their power cores if we coordinate the timing correctly. Larry Johnson received Megan's technical data through the psychic network and shared it with his students, who were now manifesting enhanced abilities far beyond their years. 10-year-old Katie Brown was calculating orbital mechanics in her head, while 12-year-old Alex Kim was interfacing directly with electronic systems by touch alone. "Mr. Johnson, I can see the satellite network," Katie said with eyes that glowed with Builder energy. "There are 47 suppression platforms maintaining the barrier, and I can reach their control systems through the school's computer network," Alex added as he placed his hands on the classroom's main terminal. "But we need to hit them all at exactly the same time or they'll adapt." Across Earth, similar scenes were playing out as the planet's population coordinated through their shared consciousness. Ordinary humans were discovering extraordinary abilities while working together toward a common goal. The Federation had intended to keep humanity isolated and weak, but instead they had created the conditions for the most powerful awakening. In galactic history. In space above Earth, Captain Karen Stone commanded a desperate fleet of human ships that had gathered to assault the barrier generators. Her converted cargo hauler Liberation led 12 other vessels in what everyone knew was a suicide mission against impossible odds. The Federation fleet guarding the barrier contained over 300 warships armed with planet-killing weapons. "All ships, this is Captain Stone," she broadcast to her small fleet. "We're about to engage an enemy force that outnumbers us 25 to 1. Any of you who want to withdraw, now is the time." "Negative, Captain Stone," came the reply from Captain Brian Murphy aboard the modified mining ship Hard Rock. "My crew didn't come this far to turn back now." Similar responses came from every ship in the human fleet. These weren't military vessels or trained soldiers. They were cargo haulers, mining ships, research vessels, and civilian transports crewed by ordinary people who had been pushed beyond their limits by Federation persecution. But as the human fleet approached the Federation forces, something remarkable happened. The psychic network connecting all enhanced humans began to affect their coordination in space. Ship movements became perfectly synchronized without radio communication. Weapons fire achieved impossible accuracy through shared targeting information. Individual vessels began operating as components of a single massive organism. "Federation fleet, this is Admiral Korath aboard the Final Authority," came a transmission on all frequencies. "You are ordered to surrender immediately and submit to processing for your biological contamination." Karen Stone felt the collective rage of 8 billion humans flow through the psychic network and into her voice as she replied, "Admiral Korath, this is Captain Stone speaking for all of humanity. You wanted to see what humans become when you threaten our families. You're about to find out." The battle that followed would be remembered across the galaxy for thousands of years. The human fleet moved through Federation formations like dancers performing a choreographed routine, but their dance was one of destruction. Ships that should have been destroyed by the first enemy salvo somehow avoided incoming fire through impossible maneuvers. Weapons that should have been ineffective against military shields found weak points with surgical precision. On Earth, Megan Davis coordinated the ground assault on the barrier generators with timing measured in nanoseconds. "All teams initiate. Overload sequence on my mark. 3, 2, 1, execute." 47 suppression satellites exploded simultaneously as builder technology overwhelmed their Federation power cores. The energy barrier that had imprisoned Earth for nearly a year began to collapse in spectacular cascades of light that could be seen from neighboring star systems. Admiral Korath watched from the bridge of the Final Authority as his carefully planned containment operation fell apart around him. The human fleet that should have been destroyed in minutes was systematically dismantling his superior force through coordination that seemed to violate the laws of physics. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across Federation space," his communications officer reported with barely controlled fear. "Human resistance cells are launching simultaneous attacks on our facilities throughout the galaxy. They're all perfectly coordinated despite being separated by hundreds of light years." Korath realized with growing horror that the Federation faced something they had never encountered before. Individual humans were dangerous enough when enhanced by builder genetics, but connected humans operating as a collective intelligence were beyond anything his species could comprehend. "Deploy the planet killer weapons," Korath ordered desperately. "Target Earth directly." But as the Final Authority charged its massive destructive systems, something unprecedented happened. 8 billion enhanced humans focused their collective consciousness on the Federation flagship with the combined force of pure human fury. The psychic pressure was so intense that alien crew members throughout the ship began collapsing from terror. "Sir, the crew is unable to function," reported the tactical officer as he struggled to remain conscious. "The humans are projecting some kind of mental assault that our minds cannot process." Korath felt it too. The overwhelming presence of an entire awakened species whose righteous anger could be felt across space and time. It was the fury of every human who had ever been oppressed, every child who had ever been threatened, every innocent who had ever needed protection. It was the collective wrath of humanity focused into a single moment of judgment. "We have not defeated humanity," Korath transmitted to Federation headquarters as his ship's systems began failing under the psychic assault. "We have created gods filled with wrath." The Final Authority exploded in a cascade of light that could be seen from Earth as the barrier finally collapsed completely. Humanity was free, but more importantly, humanity was awake. The scattered species that had once enslaved others and then feared retribution were about to learn what justice looked like when, administered by the rightful heirs of the builders, the galaxy would never be the same. The ruins of the Federation High Council chamber on Vorthan Prime smoldered under the light of twin suns as Captain Jake Morrison walked through the debris. 3 months had passed since the barrier around Earth had fallen and the galaxy had witnessed the full power of awakened humanity. The war that followed had been swift and decisive, but Jake took no satisfaction in victory achieved through overwhelming force. "The surrender documents are ready for your review, Captain Morrison," said former Federation Ambassador Kelleth as the reptilian diplomat approached with obvious nervousness. "The remaining Federation worlds have agreed to all terms of the new Galactic Accord." Jake accepted the datapad and reviewed the surrender terms that had been negotiated by human representatives. Across known space, the Federation military had been disbanded and its weapons destroyed. All species would have equal representation in the new galactic government. Most importantly, no species would ever again be subjected to systematic persecution or genocide. "These terms are acceptable," Jake said as he signed the documents. "But remember, Ambassador Kelleth, humanity didn't fight this war to become your new masters. We fought it to ensure that no one would have masters ever again." On Earth, President Ellen Martinez stood before the United Nations General Assembly. As representatives from 200 alien species gathered to witness the establishment of the new galactic order. Ellen had been a small-town mayor before the awakening began, but her enhanced abilities had made her a natural leader for humanity's transition to galactic citizenship. "We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals united in our commitment to freedom and justice," Ellen addressed the assembly. "Humanity has inherited great power from our builder ancestors, but we will use that power only to protect those who cannot protect themselves." The alien delegates listened with a mixture of fear and hope as Ellen outlined the principles that would govern the new galactic civilization. Unlike the Federation's rigid hierarchy based on species superiority, the new galactic accord would be built on cooperation and mutual respect between all intelligent life forms. Dr. Nina Walsh sat in the front row of the assembly hall and marveled at how much had changed since her discovery in the Builder ruins. The genetic activation that had begun with a few scattered humans had now spread to nearly every member of their species across the galaxy. Humanity had become something greater than the sum of its parts while somehow retaining the compassion and moral flexibility that made them worthy of their inheritance. "The Builder Network remains active within human consciousness," Nina had reported to the assembly earlier. "But unlike our predecessors, we have chosen to maintain our individual identities while sharing collective knowledge. This allows us to coordinate our actions without losing our humanity." On the former Federation military base orbiting Rigel 7, Chris Hayes worked with his alien friend Zixka to oversee the dismantling of weapon systems that had once been used to suppress rebellious species. The insectoid engineer had become an ambassador for his people in the new galactic order, helping to build trust between humans and the species who had feared them. "I must confess, Chris, many of my people still do not understand how you humans can possess such power, yet choose not to use it for domination," Zixka said as they watched planet-killer missiles being safely disassembled. Chris smiled as he felt the gentle presence of the human collective consciousness in the back of his mind. "Because we remember what it felt like to be powerless, Zixka. No one should ever have to experience what we went through." The systematic persecution that had driven humanity to awaken had left deep scars on the human psyche, but those scars had also created an unshakable commitment to protecting others from similar suffering. Enhanced humans used their abilities not to rule over alien species, but to ensure that no species would ever again face extinction at the hands of more powerful neighbors. On the farming world of New Montana, Pete Collins stood in his wheat fields and watched alien agricultural specialists learning human farming techniques. The same Federation officials who had abandoned his colony during the persecution were now requesting humanity's help in feeding their own starving populations. "It's ironic," Pete said to his neighbor Helen Ross as they supervised the alien trainees. "They tried to destroy us because they thought we'd become tyrants, but now they're begging us to save them from the mess their own tyranny created." Helen nodded as she treated alien patients in her medical clinic using human biotechnology enhanced by builder knowledge. The Federation spent so much effort maintaining their hierarchy that they forgot how to actually solve problems. Now they're learning that cooperation works better than domination. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out as humanity shared their enhanced abilities with species that had once persecuted them. Enhanced humans helped terraform dead worlds into garden planets. Human engineers taught alien civilizations how to build technology that worked in harmony with natural systems rather than destroying them. Human teachers showed young aliens how to resolve conflicts through understanding rather than violence. Tony Green continued coordinating communications between human settlements, but now his network carried messages of hope and cooperation rather than desperate calls for survival. This is Tony Green broadcasting from the new Galactic Communication Center. He announced on frequencies that reached every inhabited world. Today marks the first anniversary of the new Galactic Accord, and I'm happy to report that galaxy-wide conflicts have decreased by 90% since humanity assumed guardianship responsibilities. The transformation hadn't been without challenges. Some human groups had initially wanted to use their enhanced abilities for revenge against their former oppressors, but the collective consciousness prevented such impulses from taking root. The shared wisdom of 8 billion awakened minds created a moral authority that guided individual actions toward justice rather than vengeance. Dr. Kate Bell had spent the past year studying how the human collective consciousness maintained ethical behavior despite possessing overwhelming power. The builder genetics include psychological safeguards that prevent the abuse of enhanced abilities, she explained in her research reports. Humans who attempt to use their power for selfish purposes experience intense psychological discomfort that forces them to reconsider their actions. But the most important safeguard was humanity's shared memory of suffering under oppression. Every enhanced human carried within their consciousness the experiences of those who had been persecuted, enslaved, or threatened with extinction. This collective trauma had become collective wisdom that prevented the repetition of historical cycles of abuse. On the asteroid mining station where Rick Turner had first led human resistance against Federation forces, a monument now stood commemorating the awakening of humanity's builder heritage. The inscription read, "From scattered seeds came mighty trees, from righteous anger came lasting peace." Rick stood before the monument with his enhanced miners who had become teachers and engineers in the new galactic civilization. "We didn't fight for dominion," he told the young aliens who came to learn about human history. "We fought for the right to exist as equals in a galaxy where all species could prosper together." The memorial attracted visitors from across known space who wanted to understand how a persecuted species had transformed galactic civilization through the application of enhanced power guided by moral principles. The human example had inspired other species to examine their own histories and work toward healing the wounds left by centuries of Federation oppression. As the first anniversary of the new Galactic Accord concluded, humanity looked toward a future where their role as galactic guardians was balanced by their commitment to fostering independence and growth in other species. The wrath that had once echoed across the stars had become a promise that tyranny would never again go unopposed in the galaxy. The builders had chosen their heirs well. Humanity had inherited not just enhanced abilities but the wisdom to use them responsibly. The galaxy was finally free, and it would remain free as long as humans remembered the lessons learned during their darkest hour. In that remembrance lay the true echo of humanity's wrath, not a threat of destruction, but a promise of protection for all who sought to live in peace among the stars.